In the world of biomedical innovation, where transformative therapies and disruptive technologies are forged from years of rigorous scientific discovery and multi-phase clinical trials, the financial backbone that supports these endeavors is just as critical as the science itself. One of the most strategically nuanced elements in financing biotech ventures is the concept of staged capital combined with equity dilution, a delicate balancing act that determines not only the survival of a company through its early years, but also the long-term control retained by its founders and the value ultimately realized by its stakeholders. In Chapter 7 of Navigating the Business Side of Biomedicine and Biotechnology, Rasit Dinc provides a masterclass in understanding how stage capital operates within the venture capital framework and why managing dilution intelligently is one of the most essential disciplines for any entrepreneur in this space. At the heart of the issue lies a simple yet profoundly impactful challenge. Biotech companies require vast amounts of capital long before they ever generate revenue. This means that by the time a therapy or device receives regulatory approval, the startup has often undergone multiple rounds of financing, each of which dilutes the equity stake of the original founders and early employees. The conventional approach, to raise a large amount of capital early on, can seem appealing for its simplicity, but it often comes at the cost of surrendering significant equity and potentially control, especially if the company is not yet adequately valued. Alternatively, raising money in smaller staged tranches aligned with specific milestones, known as value inflection points, can allow entrepreneurs to retain more of their company while still accessing the capital needed to progress. However, this strategy introduces a different set of risks, most notably the possibility that future funding rounds may not materialize when needed, which could jeopardize operations and erode investor confidence. Dinc illustrates this dynamic through a conceptual model of a startup's evolving balance sheet, where the initial value of the company exists solely in the form of an idea, often held in the mind of a scientist or clinician. Once this idea is formalized, typically through intellectual property filings and early data validation, it can be assigned a notional value, V0. As the startup progresses, this value must increase through subsequent stages, V1, V2, V3, and so on, each representing a key milestone such as animal study results, Indiana submission, Phase 1 trial completion, and beyond. At each of these stages, the company can theoretically justify a higher valuation, which in turn enables it to raise capital under more favorable terms and with less dilution. The founder, who might begin owning 100% of a company that exists only on paper, must understand that retaining such ownership into later stages is virtually impossible. The question is not whether to accept dilution, but when and how to accept it strategically. This is where stage capital becomes not just a funding strategy, but a philosophical approach to value creation. In this model, the founder raises an initial amount, say $2 million, to reach a specific milestone, instead of the full $8 million needed to take the product to market. If the milestone is met and the company's valuation rises, the next $6 million can be raised with less dilution. This way, the founder retains a larger stake and greater influence over the company's trajectory. But as Dinc points out, the timing of capital infusions must be carefully calibrated. Missing a funding milestone or misjudging the capital market's appetite for risk at a given moment can leave the startup stranded, undercapitalized, or forced into unfavorable deal terms. Moreover, in biotech, where success is contingent upon high-performing interdisciplinary teams, any interruption in funding can lead to the loss of top scientific or regulatory talent, which in turn can erode the very value the company sought to protect. Thus, while stage capital offers a promising path to preserving ownership and mitigating early over-dilution, it demands rigorous financial planning, scenario modeling, and investor communication. Another element discussed in the chapter is the psychological impact of dilution, especially for scientific founders who may feel a sense of personal ownership over their innovation. Letting go of a controlling stake can feel like surrendering one's mission or identity. But as Dinc explains, maintaining majority ownership while lacking the capital to execute a successful development plan is a hollow victory. Worse, it can lead to operational stagnation, reputational damage, and missed opportunities. In reality, the value of equity is not in the percentage, but in its share of an enterprise that is growing, achieving, and moving toward a meaningful exit. It is better to own 20% of a billion-dollar success than 80% of a company that never clears Phase 1 trials. To navigate this terrain, biotech entrepreneurs must master the art of dilution math. For instance, suppose a company is valued at $10 million and requires $8 million in funding. If all capital is raised at once, the founder might be left with only 20% of the company post-financing. However, if the founder raises $2 million first, uses that to achieve a key milestone, and the valuation subsequently rises to $20 million, the next $6 million can be raised at more favorable terms, preserving a significantly larger equity share. The trade-off, of course, is uncertainty. If the milestone is missed or market conditions shift, raising that second tranche becomes far more difficult. This is why risk mitigation strategies are essential. Startups should not only plan for best-case scenarios but also prepare contingency strategies, bridge financing, convertible notes, or partnerships that can provide lifelines if funding gaps emerge. Communication is key here. Investors need to see that the startup is being run not just by passionate scientists, but by financially disciplined leaders who understand capital efficiency and milestone-driven growth. Transparency about timelines, burn rates, and potential risks helps build the credibility necessary to secure follow-on investment. Additionally, companies should carefully evaluate how equity is distributed among early team members, advisors, and investors. Overly generous grants in the early stages can complicate cap tables later on and make subsequent fundraising rounds more challenging.